Hello once again, welcome to episode 6 of In Brisbane. G'day Shannon.
G'day Kevin.
We've got Nicola McDougall. I always love it when Nicola McDougall comes in. She has a certain amount of energy and she's our special feature guest this show. And she's talking about, well, a bit of a personal experience, Shannon, isn't it?
Yeah, the suburbs that people only move out in a pine box, Kevin.
Oh, really? Well, actually, yeah, she's still in the suburbs she's going to be talking about, and she talks about her personal experience. Our suburb feature is going to be Stafford.
Yeah, Stafford's about 6 to 7 k's north of the city, and it's one of those suburbs with the bigger blocks, some city views and breezes, and a lot of ex-housing commission properties being knocked over and rebuilt and really gentrifying.
We'll talk to an agent from that area too. We'll discuss that with him as well. Our question is on granny flats. And we've got your tip as well. But firstly, let's kick off with the market report. A little bit different this time. You're going to be talking about some stats, Shannon.
Yeah, we got recently some of the first findings from the census of 2016, and it seems that the Brisbane population's on the rise. And that's thanks mainly to some developments in that Rochedale, Fitzgibbon, Tagan, Burbank areas, but also inner city living's on the rise as well. So you've got your Bowen Hills, Fortitude Valley, Newstead, areas that we're in today, is really brought a lot more migration. Speaking of migration, there's been a huge increase. Still the UK and New Zealand are our leading migrants to Brisbane, but there's been a huge increase from China and India and also a lot of other Asian countries as well. And finally, the median age has increased. We're getting paid more. The Brisbane LGA figures about that $770 per week on average, which is bigger than the Queensland average and bigger than the Australian median wage. And median mortgage repayments have gone down with that lower interest rates. The median mortgage repayments have gone down to about 25% of the weekly take-home pay.
Yeah, I actually heard a conversation, I had a conversation with Dr. Andrew Wilson recently, and he talked about that, the fact that loans are less, interest rates are down, and he was saying that housing affordability is probably the best we've seen it in a long, long time in Australia.
Yeah, we've seen that gap the widest it's been for 20 years between the southern markets, and that'll have a knock-on effect to the amount of disposable income that you can spend, put into renovations, extensions, or take a hold of that. Okay,
well, let's get into our feature guest, Nicola McDougall, and the magic of television. Well, how about that for the magic of television? Nicola McDougall joins us. Nicola, thank you very much for being with us in Brisbane.
Good to see you, Kevin, as always.
Thank you. We wanted to have a talk to you about the article you wrote, which was called Suburbs Where No One Wants to Leave. Now, I believe that was based on some personal experience?
Yeah, like any normal journalist, I guess, we often get our best story ideas from our own experience. And when I first shifted to Brisbane from Fremantle about 17 years ago, the first place that I rented was a little unit in West End, near the ferry. And pretty much I haven't left that suburb, and now we're actually own, it's 800 metres from that first unit that I rented in all those years ago. So, and obviously West End is well known for people for staying for a long time. And I thought, well, you know what, I wonder what other suburbs there are out there that are the same.
Well, as well as your personal experience, of course, the research behind the article was all put together by Dr. Andrew Wilson from the Domain Group. And we're actually going to show a graphic on screen now of the suburbs that were chosen and they're particularly highlighted. But while that's displaying, can we just talk to you about the reasons why people would want to stay?
I think the results, certainly with the inner ring suburbs, 0 to 5 kilometres, really showed, those sort of, I wouldn't say the prestige suburbs like Hamilton or Ascot, but those upgraded suburbs, which have pretty much everything you could ask for. Good schools, good amenity, lifestyle cafes, retail bars. And so once you move into those suburbs and it's got everything that you need, sometimes you can wonder, well, where else would I go? And even if as your family evolves and maybe you have children, if it's in a good school zone, then you meet friends that they have children at school and things like that. And as I say, once you actually get, I guess, to those more exclusive suburbs closer to the city, it's not like you still wishing to live somewhere else because you're actually living in your dream location anyway.
Yeah, they talked about the family forming stage and looking to maybe renovate and extend rather than pay another stamp duty and move somewhere else?
That's right. I mean, obviously this research was just based on hard data, but there is, some anecdotal evidence that because of the stamp duty fees that we have here in Queensland, it does prevent or stop people from moving, because it's probably cheaper if their family is growing. It's probably cheaper for them to perhaps extend or renovate than sell, obviously, commission costs plus stamp duty buying a new place. You're maybe 50, 60 grand out of pocket just like that. So that's why why some of these suburbs are so tightly held, because people go, well, you know what, I'm just going to stay put and actually make the house more suitable to my needs right now.
The suburbs that you highlighted that we've had on the screen, have they always been the types of suburbs that people want to stay in?
I think the inner ring suburbs, none of that was really surprising. Your Highgate Hills, your Wilstons and places like that, and certainly with a lot of character homes that are right for renovation. But some of the other suburbs which were interesting, I think Nathan was in there, Carindale was in there. So those middle ring suburbs perhaps that are offering, more bang for your buck, also on big blocks. So I think that those are the sort of suburbs that are more likely to gentrify as we go on, because clearly the inner ring that's already happened. But whereas if you're looking at those other suburbs, 5 to 10, maybe pushing out to 12 kilometres from the city, those are the sort of suburbs, if we do the study again in a few years, we'll probably see some different suburbs in this at that point in time.
We'll get you back in a few years' time.
I hope so.
I thought it was here before that.
Indeed.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicola.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Nicola.
We're pleased that in the show this time we're featuring Stafford, a great little suburb, and joining me to talk about that and a success story in Stafford, Richard Mirosh from LJ Hooker at Stafford. G'day Richard, how you doing?
Hey Kevin, very well, thank you.
Good mate, tell me about Stafford, the market itself.
Yeah, well Kevin, the market in Stafford now, the median sale price has just hit just over 625,000. So we've seen really good growth over the last 5 years, just over 6.5% growth as well. So we're seeing a really consistent, really consistent growth in the area. Obviously, the location of it, 8 k's to the CBD, very easy access to the CBD via Gympie Road. So very major arterials, very well serviced. One of the big benefits that we're finding, it's taken a couple of years to kind of kick off, is the airport link, the north-south tunnel, the relatively new legacy way. So pretty much from Stafford Road now you can get right across Brisbane, which has certainly made a huge difference. I think people are starting to realise that at the moment.
Well, the property we want to feature is one in Patina Street at Stafford. We're going to have a look at that one on screen now, but just tell me a little bit about it. Obviously, from what we can see, it needed a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a very basic home that obviously needed a lot of renovation, or potentially someone would knock the house down and then take it away. But that particular buyer of that house was actually a renovator, and they're looking at raising it and making it a five bedroom house. In-ground swimming pool, double car garage. So spending a lot of money on the house. So pretty much anything with the city view at the moment. We're selling again a lot to renovators, or even families looking to buy to build a new home in the area with a view and a bit of value, because if you're going across to areas like your Wilston or your Windsor or your Gordon Park area, the average sale price is jumping up 30, 40, 50%.
And this one, what was the sale price on this one, Richard?
That one was 677,500. for that. So it's a 24 perch, high side of the street, nice level, quite a level block, which is unusual when you've got a bit of elevation. But it had a really stunning city view from that particular property there, and that was one of the big attributes.
I think you mentioned that the purchasers are going to be doing a renovation on this. Is that typical of the area, or are people tending to also to knock them down and rebuild good contemporaries?
Kevin, look, it's probably a bit of a mixture of both. I think it starts, like the life cycle of these things, I think when people start getting into these older areas, they probably start off with the renos and then they start moving on to the full knockdown. So we're probably on the cusp of that. We're still seeing the renos, where people come in and they'll spend 80 to 150,000. It's been pretty standard for the last 5 years, but now you're probably looking at $500,000 for a fairly nice renovation, but that's becoming fairly standard. But also, again, now people are doing that. They're going, oh well, let's actually knock them down and build from new, because of the cost is probably cheaper building from new than renovating.
Well, mate, thanks for joining us and your insight there into the Stafford area. All the best for the future, Richard. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kevin. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, well, Shannon, we've got our question of the show, and this one comes from Kent, who says, I hear a lot about granny flats. Are they really worth looking at as an investment? What advice can you offer me? What's your thoughts on granny flats?
Yeah, well, Ken, talking to my town planning friends, it's actually something that's open to a lot of Brisbane properties without the need for a development application or even a building application. There's certain you can't get too close to the boundary, and it has to be self-contained.
There's a limit on size too, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
It's about 80 square metres, I think, internally. But there is a good way to make some extra money out of your backyard, be it in a long-term share or a home office or even an Airbnb type investment. It's something that investors are turning to get that extra yield and pay down their debt a bit quicker and turn their backyards into a more useful space.
There's some confusion in my mind anyway about the name granny flat. Does it have to be a family member who lives in it?
No, it doesn't. You wouldn't want to have more than 5 unrelated people in the one property, because then you'd start to go against the boarding house rules. But as long as you're not making any of those, there's nothing wrong with it at all.
So make sure you check it out with your own local authority. And Kent, thank you very much for that question. And Kent, of course, picks up a 12-month subscription to Your Investment Property magazine, which you can do too if you send us your question, and then we choose that as the question we use in the show. All questions, by the way, too, even if we don't use them in the show, they're always answered. Shannon or myself will make sure we get an answer for you. So send it in. Just send it in through the website if you like, or send me an email at kevin@realestatetalk.com.au and we'll get your question answered. So let's wrap the show up. Your tip for the week, Shannon.
One thing that really frustrates me, Kevin, is when people want to buy a property for the benefits of tax deductions. I think that's probably putting the cart before the horse. We want to make sure that we're buying an investment grade property and not just trying to maximise our depreciation or negative gearing. It's no use if the property is not something of quality that is an appreciating item in your portfolio.
Yep, wonderful stuff. Always good advice. And a reminder once again, if you're thinking about looking at the Brisbane market, make sure you contact these guys, Shannon and his team. There's a button here for you to get in direct contact with them, and they'll give you a really good insight into the Brisbane market. But for now, we've got to say farewell. Thank you for being with us. We look forward to seeing you back here again for our next episode of Buy in Brisbane. Thanks, Shannon. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you. See you right back here. Buy in Brisbane next time.
Baby. Hit it.
Was I meant to click through?
No.
Yeah.
Was I meant to click through?